Hello and welcome back to my FPL channel. I am FPL D-Unit and today you're here for part 4 of my preseason series where I've been looking at every position in the game. We started with the midfielders, we then went to the defenders, we went to the goalkeepers, and we went to my favourite position where I play my own football, and that is in the forward line. That is the bread and butter of how you win football games, is scoring goals, and this is my favourite video putting together. It is my favourite position that I like talking about, and that is scoring goals, and I'm hopefully going to provide you with some context about that. I don't use any website other than my own research to put these videos together. It does take me quite a while, which is why they don't come out every single day. But unbelievably, I've managed to get 2 in 2 days out, so that's good. With that being said, smash a comment with what draft you're going with. Are you playing with 3 forwards? Are you going for a 3-4-3? What forwards are you picking? How much money are you investing there? And then smash a like on the video to help me continue to get this out to more people. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe. And with that being said, let's go. So the forwards, and what do we need to know about the forwards? Look, there's a lot of things that we need to think about. Again, it does come down to fixtures, form, and points. However, forwards are very different to defenders and midfielders and goalkeepers. They are very much confidence players. Like, I can sit there, I can recall one game where I played football and we were playing the bottom side, and I just thought before the game I was going to just score like 6 goals. Easy. I thought I was going to. I had 24 shots. One of the parents that was watching me, this was back when I was under 16, so a while ago. But they counted the shots I missed. I missed 23 shots before I finally got a penalty and I scored the penalty. Sometimes forwards are very much confidence players. So I just want to keep that in mind. Yeah, they are streaky as well. When they are off, we saw Dominic Calvert-Lewin last year. Looked like he was going to be a really good asset. Then he just did nothing. Did absolutely nothing for ages. And that is definitely something that can happen with forwards. So you've got to keep that in mind. Again, you've got to look at team structure, your price points, number of premiums, and which formation you want to play. What I would say about the forward line, it's going to very much depend on whether you're spending up for Erling Haaland or an Isaac, or if you're just dodging those 2 players completely. That's going to change how much money you spend most realistically on your forward line. So that does have to be taken into account. Then we've got the changes to the bonus point system, and this has really affected the forwards, which is why I'm not sure whether it's worth paying up for forwards this season or not. Now, penalty takers in the forward position last season, when they scored a penalty, they got 24 on the bonus point system. That pretty much meant that they were guaranteed, if they scored a penalty, to get the 3 bonus. That's why Chris Wood, the Woody Woodpecker, had such a great season, because when he got a penalty, got the 1 goal, that's essentially what happened. The fact it's been nerfed by half means that if it's a 1-0 game and the goal is a penalty, it's highly likely that forward will not get the bonus points. It's more likely to be defenders than a forward with the change to that part of the bonus point system. Adding on top of that, the defensive contributions, which again, they're capped at 2 points for mids and defenders. For defenders, you only need to get 10 combined. For midfielders, you need 12. I think that potentially this will make them more popular than forwards at the same price point. And the reason why I think that is because the only forward in the game that got any defensive contribution points last year was Jared Bowen. That's the only forward that got it. And that's because last season he was playing in midfield and he got it on 3 different occasions. That's it, 3 times. No one else in the forward line that you can pick this season has got defensive contribution points from last year. So that is something to keep in mind. And that means that, when you look about it and you think about a defender, they've got the clean sheet points. They could get it a goal or assist, and they can now get defensive contribution points. Whereas a forward is literally, realistically, they're looking for the goal. And if they're not getting the goal, they're capped at pretty much 2 points. So that's where you've got to weigh out how much money is good money to spend in your forward line. And I'm not actually sure what the answer is. But I'm hopefully going to provide you with some context for all the different forwards and all their different price points. And hopefully that's going to allow you to make a more informed decision than me just sitting here waffling nonsense to you. And remember, the last thing I said, Forwards quite often are confidence players, which means they are very streaky. For example, I play AFL, which is Australian Rules Football. I missed my first shot, a goal. I had 3 shots, 3 set shots, all directly in front, about 40 metres out, and I missed all 3 to the right-hand side. I reckon if the first one had gone in, I would have kicked 3 goals. But instead, the first one went to the right, and guess what? The next 2 went to the right as well, and I kicked 3 points instead. Massive difference. Forwards definitely are confidence players. Being one myself, I can tell you that straight off the bat. When I'm up and about, I think that everything I touch is going to turn into the back of the net. When I'm not, it feels like it's going to be a year until I get my next goal. So looking at my draft currently, and the 3 forwards I've got, Strand Larson, who's at the 6.5 million price point. I've got Jared Bowen at the 8 million price point, and I've got Solanke at the 7.5 million price point. Now, when we look at a couple of things in a second in terms of clean sheets and how many goals different teams conceded last year, that is making me think that maybe Jared Bowen and Strand Larson aren't the best picks. I think Dominic Solanke is a good pick based on the fact that in the first 6 weeks in particular, Tottenham don't play very many good defences from last year at all. And they play a couple of promoted teams as well. So that is coming into my line of thinking. FYI, you'll probably notice I've made 2 defender moves in my team, currently speaking. I've now got Juve instead of Wan-Bissaka. And I've now got Coyote instead of Sensei. I've been really turned off the way the Bournemouth defence has been playing. And for that reason, I think I'm just going to abort and get out of that and go for a better option that hopefully is going to provide. And that's currently as my team as things stand. So the clean sheets and goals conceded from last season. Now, I just want to say that I think if you've if you've conceded less than 45 goals last year, I'll classify that as a pretty good defense. So in that case, Arsenal I would classify as a good defense. Burnley I don't, because they're being promoted, and I know they only conceded 16 last year, but they've lost their goalkeeper, and that was a large reason why. Chelsea I would consider a good defense. Everton I would consider a very good defense. Leeds, I'm not going to consider them a good defence. Man City and Liverpool, good defences. Newcastle, close, but not quite. Nottingham Forest, ditto, 46. Sunderland, obviously, I don't consider them either. So that's 5 teams out of 20 that I would argue are good defences. Those are the teams I think that you don't want your players playing if they're in your forward line. And if they are playing those teams, you probably want to be benching them or not realistically playing them that week. Teams last season that were rubbish defensively, I think, Brighton, Brentford, Spurs, West Ham, Wolves, all teams with either 60 goals or very close to 60 goals conceded last year. Teams that surprised me actually were Villa, Fulham, Man United, around that 50 goal mark or just over. But unfortunately, they are also teams potentially that you could target moving forward this season. So the fixture difficulty rating for game weeks 1 to 6. Now, as you can see there, Arsenal have they've got Liverpool, Man City, Newcastle, and Forest weren't far behind. That's almost 4 of the best. It's actually 4 of the top 6 teams for defensive data, and obviously Arsenal is one of them in the first 6 weeks. So I'm now really rethinking my sucker pick in my team because of the fact that they are playing these good teams. As we can see there, Chelsea, though, have a really good fixture run. So outside of Palace, who are a bit of a middling defence, I have West Ham, Brentford, Brighton, all argue pretty bad defences, and the other ones were pretty middling defences. Villa, I think they also have a fairly good run based on the fact they've only really got Newcastle and Everton that were really good defences there, or close to being good defences. Man United, again, very difficult start. Newcastle as well, very difficult start there in terms of the teams they're playing in terms of them not conceding many goals. Brentford have a fairly decent start as well, as you can see there, which is why I think Wisser, if he stays, could be an absolute steal, which is probably why Thiago's being talked about as well because of that. Then we've obviously got Nottingham Forest. They've got a very soft run. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that Chris Wood is the best pick this season, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. And then, as I can see there, the reason why Solanke, I think, is probably an asset I really like, other than Man City, Spurs have Burnley, Bournemouth, West Ham, Brighton, and Wolves in their first 6. Probably the easiest run for attackers in the league, I would argue. Man City aren't too far behind. They've really only got Arsenal in there that's concerning. So again, they're pretty high as well, which makes Erling Haaland quite a realistic pick. But that's something that you really need to keep in mind looking at which attackers you're going to go to start the season with. So the pure gambles, and look, these guys are gambles. I would not be picking any of these. I would not recommend anyone just skimp out on this position, because sometimes during the season you will have injuries in your team. And when you have injuries, you rely on your bench to deliver you points. Can I safely say that any of these 4 players, or the ones underneath, realistically, are they going to be regular starters and get you points? I think the honest answer is no. So the other options I did consider in the 5 million bracket were Costellus, who's the new signing for Brighton. He could be something, but I don't know. We haven't seen enough of him to suggest that he is. We've got Edward, Foster, Bamford, who's probably realistically not going to be playing many games for Leeds because he didn't play many last year in the Championship. Mchekia, I've butchered that guy's name, but he is a new signing, so again, he could be being in. And then Fabio Silva, and then the 4.5 million bracket, we've got Barnes, who realistically barely played last season for Burnley, so I don't think he'll be doing much here. Redmond, Aduf, Ajadi, Krupi, who could get some minutes for Bournemouth potentially, Obafemi, Russon, Morgan, Lancashire, and Scarlett. Now, the 4 players that I have picked, Obi is probably realistically going to be the backup striker at Man United this year, and he's probably likely to come on and get a lot of one-pointers. So if you really wanted someone just to tick over on your bench, it's probably him. You don't have to worry about, and if you did need him, he'd probably get you 1 point. He's not going to get any more than that. He might get the odd goal here and there between now and the end of the season, but I just don't see it myself. Dooney is an interesting pick for Burnley, but again, he's playing for Burnley, so again, it's hard to gauge how well he's going to go, but his underlying stats last year were brilliant in the league he was playing in. He wasn't playing in the Championship last year, by the way. So he had 9 starts, 7 goals, 2 assists. He had next year expected goals per 90 of 0.74 and an expected assist of 0.24. That's not going to happen, but he could be an interesting pick. Then we've got Mark Gui, who is literally gone to Sunderland from Chelsea. Now he's 4.5 million. He had no stats last year. Every time he played in the league, and it wasn't very often, he only racked up, I think, under 100 minutes. Didn't do anything, and in those 100 minutes, he only racked up a 0.03 expected assist across that entire time. So nothing really to write home about there. And then Matteo Joseph, he's at Leeds. He had 11 starts last year, 3 goals, 3 assists, so not bad. 0.34 expected goals, 0.2 expected assists. As I said, I wouldn't be recommending anyone skimp out and go for any of these assets at all. I think you're asking for trouble shopping in this basement. Onto the 5.5 million hopes. Now, there is a bit more room for optimism here. I think that's the word I'm looking for, optimism. So the other options I did consider here, Fleming, Unal, Tismus, Awoni, Isidore, Osula, and Mayenda. Now, you would think that potentially Osula could be an option with the Isaac doubts going on at the moment at Newcastle and the fact that they haven't signed anyone else. So who's going to go if Isaac does leave? Like, who is the striker? No one really knows. But he's not been getting minutes either. So I don't know what's going on there. But it's one to watch. Sesko could end up joining. Sesko's probably likely to go to Newcastle or Man United, one of the two. And he could be a very good option. Just want to point that out now, even though we're talking about the 5.5 million hopes. But I think that could definitely be an option, one to keep an eye out for. And it could develop very quickly after this video is released. Then we got Beto. I think Beto at the moment probably comes in at number 2 of my options for this bracket. I think he's going to lose his place in the starting lineup to Barry. It's just a matter of how quickly that happens. I don't see David Moyes playing them both in the same team. Barry is obviously signed because obviously they think that, either Beto needs competition or he needs replacing. He did well last season and he had a bit of a hot streak, and that's where he got his 8 goals from his 15 starts. Again, the XG numbers, 0.47's about here or there. It's not amazing. It's not brilliant. It's not poor. But he plays for Everton. Everton, considering, are quite a defensive team. Then we've got Muniz. Only 8 starts last year, but he did have 8 goals and 1 assist between his time spent on the bench and during his starts. He has a much better XG of 0.56 per 90. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And if he goes to Leeds, which is potentially being rumored, or another club within the Premier League, and becomes a starting striker, he could also be a great option. Now, Raul Jimenez is 34 this year as well, so maybe he will become the main man. It will be Raul Jimenez off the bench. I mean, he can't go on forever, and this would make a logical point or season for him to start taking the reins and becoming the number one man. Then we got Nketiah. Unfortunately, realistically, I don't think he's a great option. When he's on the field, he's actually got a really good XG per 90 of 0.52, and his XA per 90 of 0.07 is not too bad either. But again, it's the starts that are the problem. 9 starts last year, only 3 goals, 2 assists. Mateta's definitely still the main man. Doesn't look like moving this summer, so I just think Nketiah is going to be having managed minutes again and coming on too much as a sub. And then Perore. He's already scored 4 goals in preseason, this man. So he's on a bit of a hot run, which could be good moving into game week 1, especially with Everton at home, who've looked a little bit out of sorts defensively with their players still coming back during preseason. Last season, he had 0.5 expected goals per 90, 0.2 expected assists per 90. He had 36 starts and he kicked 19 goals. So he's definitely one to watch, and realistically, he could be a nice little differential pick at that 5.5 million price bracket. So on to the 6 million tempters, and these guys are the ones where it does start to get me interested in them. So the other option is Xerxes. He's not an option. I'm a Man United fan, and he is not an option. If you want to waste your FPL season, pick Xerxes as one of your forwards by all means, but not for me, unfortunately, and I hate to say that about one of my own players, but he was a dud signing, and I can't see it improving this season. Now, the first one we're going to actually, 2 of these blokes are brand new to the league. So the first one is Barry. 6 million round. It came in at 6 million. Only 1.3% ownership. That's probably because of the fact that a lot of people think that Beto is going to be starting in front of Barry. Now, I would argue, based on Everton's preseason games so far, that will be the case. However, last season in La Liga, 25 starts, 11 goals, 4 assists, 0.48 expected goals, and he has an XA of 0.11, which is quite high for a forward. I think that he is going to come in and take over Beto's spot. I'm not an Everton fan, but I would argue that is going to happen sooner rather than later. And when that does, he could be an amazing asset. I think he's going to be great. He's definitely the future. He's definitely not the past. So I think he could be something, but to start the season, it's hard to go there based on the fact that I think he probably will start the season on the bench. Igor Jesus is an interesting one for Forest. Again, he played in a different league last year, only had the 10 starts. I think this is actually in Serie A, and then he went back to Botafogo, played in the Club World Cup, and now he's gone to Forest. So I'm not sure what quite happened with his season last year, but his underlying stats, again, 0.15 expected assists. Maybe there is a chance that he could actually play in the same team as Chris Wood. However, we haven't really seen that during preseason. It's either been Chris Wood starting, or in the game previously they last played, it was Igor Jesus starting. But again, I think this is the long-term successor to Chris Wood. Chris the Woody Woodpecker, well into his almost mid-30s now. This is the succession planning, I would suggest. So for that reason, Igor Jesus, again, he may start the season on the bench, but he could be a really good asset moving forward. Then we've got Thiago. Now, Thiago scored in the preseason. However, Brentford haven't really been too free-flowing, especially without Mbumo and especially without Wissa. Now, if Wissa leaves, Thiago looks like an amazing pick because he's almost going to be guaranteed nailing starting for Brentford because they're going to need a forward and he's ready to go. If Wissa stays, I'm assuming that he'll come in and play behind Wissa. With Wissa, I'm not really too sure. We haven't seen them play together because Wissa hasn't played during preseason. If Wissa stays, I don't think he's an option. If Wissa leaves, I think he's a very good option. But we don't know at the moment. Wissa is meant to be back in training today and could potentially play a preseason game for Brentford later in the week. So again, that is something to keep in mind. Very low ownership still, but that's going to improve the more it goes in and the more we get clarity about what's going on with Wissa. Judging from his stats last year, he only had 1 start, and you can't read into his stats from last season. It's a bit like Fulkrug. Last year, he was injured for most of the season. He had 6 starts, only got the 3 goals, 2 assists, and he only had an XG per 90 of 0.25 and an expected assist of 0.05. Again, pre-season though, he's looked good. He's been playing in the same team with Jared Bowen. It's like Jared Bowen's, it's almost been like they've been playing with a 5-3-2. So 5 defenders with Wan-Bissaka as a right wing back, Juve as a left wing back. and then 3 in the midfield, and then it's been Fulkrug and Bowen up front, and they've both been getting in amongst the goals. So that's promising. There is a world where you could potentially go with Bowen and Fulkrug to start the season with. It's not the worst run of fixtures for West Ham to open up, but it is one of those things that you do have to be considering which way you're going to go. I just don't know. I don't know about Fulkrug, just to be honest answer. I don't know if he's going to be able to stay away from injuries as well. So the 6.5 million punts. And look, Jackson, Delap, I don't think are options. I think João Pedro is probably going to be the likely starting striker there. However, they will be taking minutes off him, but I just don't think they're going to be regular starters to begin the season. Darwin's looked amazing in pre-season. If he went to another Premier League club, he'd be a massive option at 6.5 million. Staying at Liverpool, though, I don't think he's an option at all that needs to be considered. Gabriel Jesus at Arsenal is still injured, and Højlund at the moment is the starting Man United striker. However, if they sign a different striker, you would say that Højlund's minutes, he might not even be the league by the time the transfer window closes based on that. Now, this is how I rank these 4 in this order. I've actually got Welbeck last out of these 4. And the reason why is because he's 34. Brighton have a history of just rotating their players. Herzler does anyway from last season. And I just think that he's had the age now where he only started 24 times last season. He was missing 14 games for injury or whatever it is you want to say. 34, that's not going to be getting any better. And you want someone, if it's going to be your third forward spot, that is going to be regularly playing, regularly starting, regularly getting you points off the bench if you require them. I don't think Welbeck's that man. And for that reason, yes, he might be on penalties to start the season, but how long is he going to be fit for? I just don't know. For me, I'm not sure about that. The one pick that's a bit of a smoky here is Richarlison. Now, Son is leaving Spurs. That's been announced. And look, Son's been a great asset. I've owned him in my team for many a time during the last 10 years he's been in the Premier League. Been a great asset for Spurs. It does open up a spot in the team, though. Richarlison also could be the one that takes over from penalties. Everyone's talking about Dominic Solanke becoming the penalty taker. Well, maybe Richarlison's actually going to get a run of games in the team, and he could be a really good asset. He only had 4 starts last season because of injuries and everything else, but the pigeon could be up and flying this season. He's been playing in pre-season. He's looked half decent. Maybe Frank can get the best out of him. If he can, Richarlison definitely could be an option that everyone has forgotten about. I think, more than anything, judging from his 1% ownership. His expected underlying numbers are fantastic from the small amount of time he played last season. 0.67 expected goals per 90, 0.11 expected assists per 90. I just think he's really massively overlooked, and he's definitely someone I've got my eye on. If Solanke is not fit for the start of the season, I may just well swing it and save $1 million and go to Richarlison instead. Then we got Raul Jimenez. I talked about this with the Muniz pick at the 5.5 million bracket. He's also 34. He's getting on. And I just think that the baton's due to be handed over at some point, and I think this could be the season that happens. For that reason, yes, Fulham don't have the worst fixtures in the world to begin the season with, but I'm not confident that he's going to be racking in the goals. That's just my honest opinion. Again, his numbers, expected goals numbers, aren't the best and not exactly floating off the page at me going, I need him in my team. And then we got Strand Larsen. Now, Strand Larsen's expected goal numbers are the worst of these 4 by a country mile. However, he's going to be the main man at Wolves this year. There's no Cunha, and when Cunha wasn't available last season, Strand Larsen played his best football for Wolves. Arguably, he could be on penalties. We don't know because they haven't had a penalty during pre-season, so we haven't been able to gauge whether Strand Larsen's on him or not. But he, again, 14 goals in his first season in the Premier League is a fantastic effort. In his second season, you would expect him to consolidate that, so you could be expecting the same thing again. And at 6.5, I think he's just a nice price point, and that's the reason why he's in my team as things currently stand. So the 7.5 million guns. These guys. Wood and Havertz. Look, let's just cover this really quickly. Crystal Woody Woodpecker, I love. I love him with a passion. He did so much for me last season, other than the one time when he got me 17 points on the bench, but we won't talk about that. That was just my own stupidity for benching him that week. But look at these. It's hard to put him in front of these 4 because I just think Forest are going to have a drop-off, and they've signed direct competition for Chris and Woody Woodpecker in terms of Igor Jesus, who I've already covered in the previous section of this video. For that reason, I've just not included him. And yeah, he could start the season like an absolute train on fire. Nottingham Forest fixtures to begin the season are incredible. They play easy defences. I just think that Chris Wood outperformed his expected goals so much last year. There's got to be some regression to the norm. And for that reason, I just think that, and he's also that extra year older. For that reason, I haven't included him in this particular segment. So we're going to start with the one that I like the least, and that's Dominic Solanke. I think there's a lot of hype about Dominic, and I don't know if it's all justified. Last season, he only had 25 starts. He missed a bunch of games for injury, and in those 25 starts, he only got 9 goals and 5 assists. Now, let's talk FPL. Andy will say that Dominic Solanke is the best thing since sliced bread, and basically said last season that, he'd missed 6 games for injury, and then basically tried to tell me he had one less attacking return than the games that he played. I was like, but you're also forgetting about the games he missed. Those are still games where if you hold him in your team, he's getting you 0 points. So I think that his injury record is not the best, and I'm not sure that he's as good a pick as people are thinking. Yes, I understand the idea that Frank's going to make him like a Wissa or an Mbumo, but maybe Solanke's just not that good. So for that reason, he comes in at number 4. Again, his underlying numbers aren't that... they're pretty middling, really, to be honest with you, if I'm being brutally honest. Next up, it's then João Pedro. Now, João Pedro looked amazing at the Club World Cup, but can he sustain that? Can he get enough minutes to be getting those points on a week-to-week basis? I'm not sure that he can. 23 starts last season for 10 goals, 6 assists. Again, he's also got a bit of a problem with staying injury-free. He spent a lot of his time at Brighton and then Watford before then on the injury table. Not often muscular problems, like ankle problems, etc., etc. He's had some injury issues. I don't think he should be being owned by so many people in the game. Like, over 50% ownership seems ridiculous to me for a guy that is almost guaranteed not to be lasting 90 minutes in any single game week. I just don't see it. Yes, the Club World Cup hype was amazing and he was brilliant there and he scored some goals, but they were worldies. Like, the 2 in that semi-final were worldies. I just think he comes in then. If Wissa stays at Brentford, I think he is the best pick. But if he leaves, he's probably going to drop behind the rest. But I'm basing this on the fact that he's staying at Brentford for now, but he could end up becoming second fiddle like a Newcastle or another team in the Premier League. But his stats last year, he was so good. 18 goals, none from the penalty spot. Just shows how good this man was last year. He was super consistent, 0.57 expected goals per 90 as well. I mean, when you're banging in 18 goals and getting 6 assists during the season, that's just really good value, especially even at 7.5 mil. I think he's priced really well if he stays at Brentford. I think I would 100% be putting him in if it looks like he's going to be staying there, and we've getting confirmation that prior to the season starting. But at this moment, it's very hard for me to put him in. Then is Mateta. Mateta's been banging the goals in during pre-season already, and I reckon there's a chance that Crystal Palace could catch Chelsea cold on the opening game week of the season. I'm surprised he's only owned by 6%. People probably put off by the fact that he had a lot of minutes missed towards the end of last season, but he's well over his injury. He's ready to go. He could be an amazing asset. If Crystal Palace start the season well for once, Mateta is going to be on fire early. Yeah, it's just a couple of tricky fixtures to begin the season, which is kind of putting me off Mateta, but I think across the season, he could end up actually being the best of these 4. So onto the odd price points now. These ones, they're the only ones at their price points. We've got a Van Linson at 7 mil. I'm surprised he's only owned by 2.4%. He had 28 starts last year, 10 goals, 5 assists, has 15 attacking returns in 28 games. That's literally 1 every other game. And for 7 mil, just seems really good. He's looked pretty decent in pre-season as well. One of the lively things on Bournemouth is their attackers looked okay. And if Van Linson's been involved, he's got a goal during pre-season as well. And he's not too badly priced. Like, 7 mil is not a bad price. And outside of the Liverpool game, they've actually got a nice run of fixtures. Then we're going to look at Ekitike, 8.5 million. He got an assist in the last pre-season game at Anfield against, I can't remember the team they played on the weekend, but the fixtures for Liverpool to begin the season are hard. They've got Newcastle and Arsenal, two of the better defences in game weeks 2 and 3. How many goals are they realistically going to score in those games? I think Ekitike is one of those ones where we sit and we assess and we see how he gets on, particularly for the first 3-5 games. 33 starts last season in the Bundesliga, 15 goals, 8 assists. It's the only season where he's put up these kind of numbers. 0.6 expected goals, 0.25 expected assists. He's got the assist threat as well as the goal threat based on his season from last year. But I think when you can pay 0.5 million less and get Jared Bowen in your team, it's a bit of a no-brainer. This dude had 0.26 expected goals per 90, 0.2 expected assists. He has the ability to get assists and goals based on the fact he finished with 13 goals last year and 11 assists. And the dude pretty much plays every single week. And he barely misses through injury. I mean, he did miss 4 games for injury last year, but I just think he's a lock. He's such an easy lock, I think, in my own team. I struggle to see any draft prior to game week 1 where Jared Bowen's not involved. I just think for those fixtures opening the season, I just think he's going to be so good. I think they could still be catching Chelsea, catching up after the lack of pre-season. Tottenham obviously conceded lots of goals last year, and so did Brentford. So people saying Frank's going to improve him defensively. Is he really? I'm not so sure. Jared Bowen is the one that I really love here. So the premiums, these guys, now, this is where it's interesting. Do you pay up for any one of these 4? That is the question. Let's start with a newcomer to the league, Gyökeres. Now, his stats last year are, when you look at him on the page, like, oh my God, if he does anything like that in the Premier League, this is the forward to own at 9 mil. 33 starts last year for 39 goals. That's over a goal a game, 7 assists. He had an expected goals per 90 of 1.13. That's ridiculous. That's almost double. It's actually double what Watkins put up in terms of expected goals per 90 last year, and very close to double what Isaac put up. That's obviously going to regress. He even had 0.26 expected goals per 90. Expected assists per 90 as well. But again, it was in the Portuguese league. The standard of teams there are significantly worse, and he did get a boatload of penalties last year as well. And if you go back and look at some of the goals on YouTube that he scored last year, I don't know what the goalkeepers are doing, but they're rolling around like they're just pretending to dive over the ball. I don't think he's going to be that good. And I don't think he should be owned by 23.8%. And I can see him getting benched in game week 1 and coming on for Kai Havertz in the second half. Then we go to Isaac. At the moment, we don't know if he's going to be playing for Newcastle or if he's going to be playing for Liverpool. Liverpool put a bid in. It's been rejected. Newcastle probably trying to find a striker. If they get a striker that they're happy with, they probably let him go. I'm not sure. We don't know. All we know is that Isaac is probably not going to be fit for game week 1. He's still complaining of a sore groin/quad from what I can read out on the news. No one really knows what's going on. If it's just a fake so he doesn't have to go into training, who really knows? But I'd be concerned that Isaac's going to be even ready for game week 1, regardless of who he is. So for that reason, I think at the moment you just need to overlook him. I'm surprised that he's got such high ownership. Then that brings us on to Watkins and Haaland. Now, arguably, these two have amazing fixtures to begin the season with. They play rubbish teams that conceded lots of goals last year. Haaland has Wolves, Tottenham, Brighton, all 3 pretty rubbish defenders, followed by Manchester United in game week 4. And they aren't a very good defence either, I don't think. Ollie Watkins has Newcastle, good defence. Brentford, no. Crystal Palace, middling. And then they have Everton. Again, they're pretty decent defence. I expect Watkins has outscored Haaland in the last 2 seasons. And he costs 5 million less. I think he's a no-brainer. If he's still at Aston Villa by the time the deadline rolls around, I think Ollie Watkins is the pick for everyone. Haaland, though, has the explosions with him. He can easily get the hat-tricks. Ollie Watkins is never going to get you a hat-trick. He might get you 1 in a blue moon. Haaland's got the capability of getting you like 3, 4, 5 hat-tricks in 1 season. That's why you pay 14 million for those hat-tricks when they happen. It's just a matter of hopefully owning him when he does. Unfortunately, Man City only playing 1 preseason game prior to their Premier League debut this season. So it's going to be super hard to read too much from their preseason game. We just got to hope that they start well. But there's also every chance that they could start poorly as well. So that brings us to the end of my 4th part and the forwards. And yes, this is actually the longest of the 4 videos because I just love talking about forwards. I love talking about scoring goals. I don't know whether it's worth paying up for one of the premiums, whether it's worth paying up for two of the premiums, and then just having someone you don't want to play at all in your forward line. At the moment, I would argue that my strategy of 3 middling blokes, I don't know if it's correct or not, and that's the honest answer. And I'm debating about that in my head, and this video hopefully is going to provide you with some information in regards to how you construct your forward line and whether it's worth taking money out of it to spend on the midfield instead or on defense. Let me know in the comments what you think. Before you go, smash a like, and if you haven't already, press that subscribe button. My tip strategy will be out later in the week. That is the next video I've got planned for preseason. Hope to see you there. I've been FPL D-Unit, and I'll see you again soon.